Do you tend to avoid thinking about difficult emotions or memories? Or have you heard that it's unhealthy to just stuff down all the hard things? In this video, I'm going to present a helpful strategy to use in order to slowly and deliberately work on distressing memories and emotions. And it's a resource that trauma therapists use all the time to help people process trauma. As a therapist, it's very common for people to come in and tell me that they have stuff in their past that they haven't been able to heal from. And a lot of times they've dealt with it by avoiding it or never talking about it. And with good reason, because most people don't have the tools to slow down overwhelming emotions. So when they think about their trauma or they get hit with a big trigger, they try to deal with it all at once, and this can be super overwhelming. So that's why a lot of people get stuck just avoiding their trauma. And while this is protective and it has helped them function in their daily life, it doesn't help in ultimately healing and lessening the impact of these past traumatic experiences or the difficult things that have happened to you. So in this video, I'll teach you one of the tools that you can use to help you process difficult and painful memories in a gradual way, to move through them instead of just avoiding them. And it's called the container method, and it's a really important tool for helping people work through their trauma. So let's start with a client story. A woman in her 30s recently began therapy for the first time as an adult, and she spoke about years of complex trauma due to instability and drug abuse in her family of origin, and also in her previous marriage. She had faced abuse and neglect from her drug-addicted parents, and she'd been in an abusive marriage for several years. So in her words, she was an expert in not dealing with her complex feelings of years of abuse and neglect and hurt and danger and pain. There were just too many situations in which she wasn't having her needs met or even acknowledged, and not only that, she was in danger some of the time. But Freud said, feelings buried alive never die. And all of that unprocessed pain was really interfering with her life. So she would have triggers at work, or she was overwhelmed with anxiety, or she'd have these physical symptoms of stress and fear and anxiety. And she was having a hard time building healthy relationships. So now she's really struggling with depression and anxiety because of all this trauma that she's stuffed down. But when she tried to think about those memories or to process that trauma, she'd feel so overwhelmed that also made it hard to function. So she was stuck in this kind of in-between place where not talking about it made things worse and talking about it made things worse. So what can you do to slowly work through these painful memories and, memories of trauma? And one method is containment. So this is a psychotherapeutic strategy to create an actual container in our minds that will be the holding place for our painful memories and feelings. And the purpose of this skill is to create a place in our minds that we can safely store the difficult memories when we aren't quite ready yet or quite able to process through those feelings. Now, you might be thinking hey, wait a minute, is Emma telling us to avoid our feelings? Great question. It can seem counterintuitive to stuff all the bad things into this container. But I'm not teaching you to sweep it under the rug. What we're really doing is putting these memories away for safekeeping so that you can access them when you're ready to in a healthy way. So the purpose of the container is to be a temporary placeholder for the difficult memories and emotions that we're not ready to face. So let's think of this from a medical example. If someone breaks their leg, they might use crutches or a wheelchair while their leg heals. The goal is not to use those crutches forever. It's just as part of the process of healing. And in combination with the crutches, you use physical therapy to help the leg get stronger so that you can put weight on it again. So we don't want to use crutches forever, and we don't want to re-break our leg by walking on it too soon. So we allow the bone to get stronger, and we use support, and then eventually we'll get to where we can walk without support. With the container exercise, the goal isn't to get really good at stuffing your emotions into a container, but rather to give yourself some time and space to get the skills you need to be able to work through those feelings little by little in a healthy way within your window of tolerance instead of getting overwhelmed by them. So let's say, for example, you live in a small town and so does someone who's abused you. there is a realistic chance of running into them unexpectedly. Or let's say you served in the military and loud noises, the smell of smoke, or the sound of a siren will trigger like a huge PTSD response. Or another example, you work in EMS and you have come face to face with some terrible scenes at work. Now, these situations where you get triggered by running into someone, by hearing a loud noise, or at work having to deal with death or gore, these situations could happen anywhere, right? You could be at the pharmacy, you could be at a party, you could be at work, you could be alone, or you could be with toxic people. And none of these locations are necessarily ideal for working through trauma and the associated fight, flight, freeze response that comes with it. So the goal of the container exercise is that the container can hold these triggers for a time until you're in a safe space to talk about them and think about them and pull them out and work through them. The other time this exercise can be helpful is like with that woman who had so much trauma as a child. If you have so much trauma that you can't work through it all at once, what we're going to do is we're going to choose which parts of it we pull out of the box at a time. And then we're going to put the rest in, wrap it up, save it for later, and that helps us chip away at trauma like one memory at a time. The container method is also a short-term strategy that can help you get through the day until you can use your long-term strategies to process emotions. So if you're not sure what I'm talking about when I'm talking about processing emotions, I mean, I do have a course on this, a 30-part course, but it includes things like getting support, journaling, therapy. There's just a lot of skills you can use, but when you're traumatized, it's hard to remember those. So, last disclaimer, like many therapeutic strategies, this is one where we would probably be more likely to say, don't try this at home. Like if you have intense, overwhelming memories or feelings, whenever possible, please access a therapist. And at the same time, I understand that many of you can't access a therapist. So although the container skill is something you usually do with a trained professional, a trained mental health professional, you can learn to use the principles of it on your own when necessary. Okay, so how do you do it? Let me teach you. So in this video, I'm going to describe to you how to use it. And then if you want to practice the actual exercise, like check out my other video. It's a guided walkthrough where you can just listen to the exercise part, and the link is in the description. So what you're going to do is you're going to create in your mind a visual image of a safe, secure place. It could be a locked filing cabinet, a chest with a padlock, a bank vault, a castle keep, or any type of container that feels safe and secure for you. Next, you're going to imagine your traumatic memories as items. They can be concrete things like a letter, or you can keep it vague like a swirling mist. And if you want, you can identify a traumatic experience that you want to work on later. If you have many, it's okay to like write a list of them and put those in your container for safekeeping later as well. So now just go ahead and visualize yourself putting those memories into your container, and then secure the box, secure the container. You're going to lock it. And it's important to remember that you are in control of this box. You hold the key and you decide when to open it and when to close it. Now, for some people, this is actually great to do in a practical, physical way. So I might have a client draw a quick picture of a traumatic memory and then physically take that piece of paper, put it in a file folder, and then put that in a filing cabinet, and then we'll lock that cabinet. And next time they come to therapy, we'll say, hey, do you want to pull that file folder out or not? And they'll decide. For other people, they might use a journal, or they might use a shoebox, or Post-it notes, or a therapy journal that they keep locked or secure somewhere. They might do this container exercise in a very physical way. You could also use this like in journaling. Be like, okay, I'm having these huge emotions. I'm overwhelmed. I'm going to write it down. I'm going to brain dump it all into my journal, and then I'm going to put my journal away, and I'm going to go back to work and do what I need to do. So you can do this exercise. What I'm trying to say is you can do this exercise in two ways. One is a guided visualization, where you simply visualize those memories getting put into your castle keep or whatever container you've chosen. And the second way to do this is to make a physical note of that memory, put it on a Post-it note, put it in a letter, whatever it is, and then put that in a physical place in a filing cabinet or some other locked box. So those are the two ways to do the container exercise. And again, the goal isn't to store these things forever. The goal is to empower yourself to open them when you're ready. And with practice, and as you build up a bunch of skills, you can get really good at doing this on your own. You'll get so good at processing your traumatic memories that you'll have confidence in yourself and your abilities. Next time a big trigger comes up or next time a big memory comes up, you'll know what to do to work through it. So again, this exercise helps us slow down the intensity of these emotions and memories so that you can stay in your window of tolerance. This is the optimal zone where you're able to work through memories instead of getting overwhelmed by them or just shutting down. As you build up your internal skills, when these triggers and these new experiences come up, you'll think, oh, I know what to do with this. I can put this in a container, and then I'll process it later when I'm in a safe place, like with my good friend or with a therapist. My friend and fellow therapist, Lindsay, she told me this story about a client who walked into a session and said, my mom showed up on my doorstep last Friday, but I put her in a container, but we need to talk about that today. And that's an example of how to use that mental container exercise. Now, this client understands that we don't have to process every experience in the moment, but she also understands that we do need to process it. So for some people, putting their feelings in a box is the only skill they have. And when they use it too much without working through their feelings, pretty soon their mental house is overflowing with too many boxes. So I'm thinking of like some of the common examples of this are police officers, military, EMS, doctors. They get so good at stuffing things in boxes that they don't realize that they're storing too much trauma, and they become emotional hoarders, and all of those unprocessed feelings are interfering with their life. It's not that the container is a bad skill, it's that it can't be your only skill. And I think that's why a lot of police or EMS or military and doctors, they have such high rates of divorce or suicide or PTSD, because they're just over relying on this skill and they're not opening up those boxes and clearing them out. So back to opening up the box. When we process through trauma, of course this can be painful. So it's best to do it very slowly, using tools like grounding skills and nervous system regulation, willingness, journaling, and with the support of a therapist. It's also great to use interventions like EMDR or rapid resolution therapy. And you can also build up resilience by adding in positive coping skills like exercise, talking with a friend, or doing a relaxing hobby. So building up your internal resilience with self-care. If you are going to use the container exercise, again, it's important to schedule in some time when you do plan to process through those memories and emotions. I recently read an example of someone who used the container exercise in a physical way for her anxiety at work. So she'd be trying to do her job and random worries and anxiety would come up. So she'd write those fears or those worries on a Post-it note, and then she'd stick those Post-it notes in a jar, and then she'd go back to work. And then at the end of the week, on like a Friday, she would open up the jar and look through her Post-it notes and clear them out. And by Friday, a lot of those worries and problems had already solved themselves by then. And then the other notes, she would just like talk about them with a friend or journal about them. And by doing that, she felt way less anxious during the week. And then by the end of the week, she was able to work through her fears and anxieties. And that way they didn't just build up and build up and build up. And for her, this helped her kind of overcome her anxiety. Okay. So let's go back to the client from the beginning of the video. So her years of trauma with her family of origin and her marriage made her a perfect candidate for the containment exercise. She was able to start this gradually with her therapist, and some weeks she would have a specific memory she'd want to work on, and then another session she would just work on what was going on that week. And with the support of her therapist, she was able to face these painful memories and these emotions in these like small manageable doses. She learned skills to soothe her physical anxiety, and she built up self-care skills to recover after processing trauma, because we all know that can be really exhausting. So by practicing containment in therapy, eventually she was able to feel comfortable using containment on her own, and she really built up the confidence in herself and her ability to work through her trauma, because little by little, she was healing. She was getting better. So, what do you think about containment? Have you tried this before? Does it work? What do you use for your safe container? Go ahead and comment below. Let me know what you think about the containment exercise, and let me know if there's any other trauma interventions that you're interested in learning about. Okay, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for watching. Oh yeah, I just remembered to tell you that I do have a free grounding skills course. So if you are dealing with a lot of trauma, go ahead and check that out. You'll learn a lot of skills to regulate your nervous system. So, okay, thank you for watching and take care.